country, perhaps torn, as many would want to argue. And we are all staring at that open sky, worried of just how much, the rain would rain on us and just how much the sun would be so tough on us, scorch us so hard. And this then gets us to a point where we ask ourselves, just where do we stand? Where is the leadership to address some of the problems that we have and some of these grievances we look at this morning? It's a beautiful Monday morning, and of course, what is happening politically, it looks like we're still in that mode of campaign, yet we have already, got into a space where it's done and dusted with the elections. Just why are we here? Most importantly, the high cost of living is one that many Kenyans are speaking about and hoping that, manna from heaven would fall and would get ourselves to a space where we say enough with this expensive politics, enough with this expensive lifestyle that Kenyans have to go through. Today, we see our students go to Form 1, but of course, a majority of them staring at tough times based on the fact that, others would argue that they did not get the best of schools, and even those ones that were lucky enough to be called in these beautiful schools are not able to maintain the high cost of education. Just what way forward? This is what we look at, even as we take a look at the conversations on tax and politics over the weekend. Welcome on board. It's good to have you. The hashtag is Morning Cafe at Linda_Lela TV47KE. I'll be looping in the guests later on for that very conversation, as well as, we get to discuss matters FGM towards the last hour of the program. So don't you go anywhere. Keep it right here, even as we decipher on these key and important matters. And to start us off is, a look at the newspapers this morning, and then we'll shift gears to look at the stories that have been prepared. My team, I have the Standard newspaper, I have the People Daily, as well as the Daily Nation. The front page of the Standard newspaper speaks of the question of education. It's the biggest story. And they say dreams at risk. This, of course, whether you'd want to call it wasted talent, as the Standard newspaper would highlight, or something else, would say we're at liberty because of the tough times on the question of education. About 1 million learners that sat for KCPE, that is last year, are expected to join Form 1 today. And despite government promise of 100% transition, the bright students stare at missing good schools for lack of school fees. This is captured on page 4 and page 5 of the Standard newspaper. And of course, we're looking at key faces of these young students that are hopeful for a better future with great marks, but a little bit worried of the difficulties that come along that. We'll be having our reporters, that is education reporters on ground, just so they would help us look at what the transition is like for the students, as parents try their level best to get the students to the right and the best schools. And amidst the complaints of how expensive the school affair then is. And lecturer battles husband for 50-50 property share. This is a story that has been captured on the front page 2, expounded on page 3, and of course talking about the properties being at the center of the case, the current home, apartment in Kileleshwa, Lubao, Volkswagen, Paso, and a couple of other things. Judges have dismissed a man's claim that he injected his retirement money into the joint accounts, and at the heart of the case were an 82 million current house and an apartment at Kileleshwa, 19 million. That's a story that involves a university lecturer was won matrimonial property court, that is battle against ex-husband after the Court of Appeal allowed her her prayer to split their marriage wealth equally. And those are the cases that we have also as pertaining to marriages today, and the courts and how they are judging some of this. A different story from there on the question of audit. The Attorney General faults Samburu County move to give elders 49 billion. Should be the Auditor General, yes. And we're talking about the county government of Samburu that paid village elders about 486 million in the fiscal year of 2020-2021, which according to the Auditor General was irregular. That is Auditor General Nancy Gadungu. And so developing a case as well. We'll be following up to see what then happens and whether then there's going to be adjustments as pertaining to that. Another story on the front page is on the question of food prices, and well, they show signs of easing. This is in the world of business. I hope that Kenyans can be positive and wait for this moment. Remember, when the Kenya Kwanza government came on board, they promised that we're going to experience some changes, but not so fast. And so we seek to see just how different this government seeks to address this question of the high cost of living, even as Kenyans continue to grapple with these difficult times. They say drop in prices of key food commodities and items is linked to planned importation of duty-free grain and recent short rains. And also the Russia-Ukraine conflict and COVID pandemic are also said to no longer affect food costs, and therefore there's going to be these adjustments that we all anticipate and look forward to. And fight for justice, Pope tells clerics. This is a story that is captured on page 29. Yes, on the front page, but expounded on page 29. This, as the world's youngest country, has been racked by civil war. That is since becoming independent in 2021. We're talking about South Sudan. And despite a peace deal in 2018, violence driven by ethnic tension has continued in this youngest nation. And as the Pope makes his visit from Democratic Republic of Congo and to South Sudan, his has been a message of peace and unity, tranquility. His has been a message of making sure that we push towards, getting these countries to enjoy the best of a democratic space that is full of a peaceful coexistence, and as well, involvement of all stakeholders in making sure that there is justice for the numerous cases of injustice that were conducted. Away from it, tax row, as Right Honorable Raila Odinga says, it's all witch hunt. The Right Honorable Raila Odinga on page 10, front page expounded on page 10 of the Standard newspaper, wants the government to stop harassing Mama Ngina and the Kenyatta family, and saying that Ruto has no mandate to determine taxes and should leave the matter to the Kenya Revenue Authority. And this is one of the key stories that forms the basis of our conversation this morning, as we seek to understand whether indeed this would be classified as witch hunt or it would be necessary for the growth of the nation. On the other side, we have shame of mass graves amid empty promises, and no respect and no respite in northern Kenya. Dogs and the vultures are devouring plenty of meat, while farmers are agonizing despite pledge that livestock uptake project would save them. A story captured on page 6 of the Standard newspaper. This is pertaining to the ASL counties and also the difficulties that these people continue to face amid these drought cases that have highly been reported. And this story speaks of the tales of drought from Marsabit, the carcasses of animals that died of starvation also strewn about Bubisa, and that for nearly 3 years the village has survived on relief food. Talking about over 36 million people as well affected by drought in IGAD region. That is 4.2 million livestock wiped out. Just what will it take for the governments or for the various governments to make sure that they address this menace? And IGAD represents Kenya, Uganda, Somalia, Sudan, South Sudan, Ethiopia, Djibouti, and Eritrea. Those are the key stories on the Standard newspaper. Let's see what the Daily Nation has in store. The front page of the Daily Nation, Kibra Declaration, if you'd want to call it that way. Azimio la Umoja One Kenya Coalition Party leader Raila Odinga has dared President William Ruto to arrest him as he signaled looming demonstrations and declared that he will not relent in his push to install a government of the people. A story captured on page 5. And, on the front page, expounded on page 5 of the Daily Nation. It's about politics, and opposition chief also accuses Ruto of victimizing former President Uhuru Kenyatta. That is the question of taxes and also the adjustments that we've recently seen. That is also the withdrawal of security, especially for the First Lady and some quarters of the former president's, well-being. Away from it, I won't relent in pursuit of tax evaders. This is according to President William Ruto, who has vowed that his administration will not relent in his push to have everyone then pay their taxes, while also insisting that the era of powerful personalities then using their influence to secure tax waiver is long gone. This is a story captured on page 4 of the Daily Nation. Away from it, Form 1 start reporting to their schools today amid congestion fears. A story captured on page 2. We will be following up on that, as earlier mentioned, to give you updates on this. They say Parents Association are actually coming on board to seek to it that, they just have the government invest in learning and boarding facilities to ease this sort of congestion. Away from it, we have members of parliament, or a question right here as to whether the members of parliament are luckiest in terms of salary reviews. And of course, this is according to an analysis conducted by The Nation. On this back page of the paper, a lawmaker's pay could be as much as about 200 times that worker in lowest cadre earns per month. And members of parliament enjoy pay rises as others scrape by. And MCAs have joined parliamentarians in calling for pay as other workers' salaries barely rise. This from the front page and to the back page, expounded for you to get to see. Another story as captured on the front page and expounded on page 7 is about Alama's Killer Building Farm bags about 20 billion housing tender. Why Killer Building is one of the controversial companies in the country, and that of course it has won 20 billion state housing tender. And of course, details of the status of the investigations and any action taken remain scanty. The farm was under investigation over the collapse of a polytechnic building in Nandi. And we're talking of about 5,360 number of housing units that EPCO builders have been contracted to deliver in Machakos County, a deal worth about 20 billion. And speaking of the 8th May, date when a collapsed building being constructed by EPCO builders killed one person and injured 6 others. Whether there's going to be adjustments or not, we can only wait to see. Those are the key stories. As we have seen, we're reminded to be careful on the roads. 14 people killed in Turkana road crash, and a number of families in Turkana woke up to news of the death of their loved ones in this very road crash on the Lodwar Kakuma Road on Saturday the 8th. And those are the key stories on these two papers that I have. Let's briefly look at what the People Daily has before we pick the stories that have been prepared by my team. Business confidence up despite tax wars. This is according to a survey conducted and is a story expounded in page 13 of the People Daily. Away from it, tough traffic rules target reckless road users. This informed by the NTSA as they unveiled proposal a day after truck crash claimed 14 lives in Turkana County. Away from it, parents cry over high cost of Form 1 even as they are set to join their students to high school today. And the parents purchase stationery and books. We have seen this for the better part of the weekend. And last week, it's been quite a lengthy process from the 23rd of January, where we had our students going back to school. And last week, sometime there, where we had the grade 6 also transiting to grade 7 or junior secondary. And now a different conversation on the Form 1 students joining school. And tax battle hots up as Ruto is not backing down, while on the other side, the Right Honorable Raila Odinga defends the former First family as pertaining to just the question of tax and who should not. According to the president and according to the law, no one should be exempted. But on the other side, it's a hula baloo. And so we'll be discussing that and much more. Karibu sana once again. Let's pick some of these stories that have been prepared by my team. 14 people have died in an accident in Kakwamwenyen, that is along the Lodwar Road. The crash that occurred Saturday night and involved a vehicle which attempted to avoid a herd of camels crossing the road due to the heavy weight of the goods and passengers in the car. The story was reported by Andrew Juma.
On Saturday evening, more than 13 passengers lost their lives in Kakwamunyen in Turkana County following an accident that involved a public service vehicle that was ferrying passengers towards Kakuma. It is reported that the driver was avoiding hitting a camel that was crossing the road. According to Benjamin Miraka, a survivor, the vehicle had carried passengers and assorted goods. The survivors were all rushed to Lodwar County and Referral Hospital for treatment, as those who passed on were moved to a mortuary waiting autopsy.
We have generally 14 mortalities or fatalities reported at the scene of accident. 10 of them were adults and 4 were children. So far, they have been evacuated with the help of the county commander.
The county's CEC of Health, Peter Lomorkai, and Turkana Central Police Commander Lemin Jiru condoled with the families that lost their loved ones.
The Lodwar County Referral Hospital received 13 cases. In the 13 cases, 4 were adults, female, 7 were males, adults, and we had two children actually. So from the 13, they are currently at fairly good condition and are going treatment at the hospital.
According to the survivors, more than 30 people had boarded the truck on their way to Kalakor when the lorry lost control and overturned, landing in a culvert on the right side of the road, leading to the death of more than 13 people.
All right, in his third public consultation here in Nairobi, Azimio la Umoja One Kenya coalition leader Raila Odinga reiterated his stance that President William Ruto has to leave State House following alleged vote rigging in the August 2022 general election. Speaking during the Kibra rally Sunday afternoon, Raila listed reasons as to why President William Ruto is not fit to be the president of Kenya, among them being the unfulfilled promises of creating a poor man's government, but instead unveiled a government of billionaires that has no room for the poor. Micah Gongo with details.
African countries, Odinga maintained his stand that President William Ruto did not win the election, but rather got into State House by hijacking and subverting the will of the people, and hence must vacate the house on the hill.
As if subverting the will of the people is not bad enough, he has proceeded to govern with absolute contempt for the people and our institutions. Tax cheats and all sorts of criminals are with Ruto right in his government, but he's pretending to be looking for criminals outside his government. We have a situation where when a poor man steals, he goes to jail, while a rich man or a woman who steals or has stolen becomes a minister or a CEO.
The ODM leader further accused Ruto of governing the country with contempt, saying the Kenya Kwanza regime is unfit to lead Kenyans as it does not respect the rule of law.
Yale matokeo walitangaza ya kwamba tulishinda na 8.1 Ruto 5.9 ndio bado yuko mpaka sasa. Hata Chebukati hajakataa, Chebucheta hajakataa na hawezi kukataa.
Referring the Kenya Kwanza's blueprint before the general election on uplifting Mama Mboga's lives and making the government better run, Raila said Ruto has instead established the opposite.
For the first time, the corrupt now own a government. Gachagua just got refunded 200 million shillings he stole from the people. Ruto wants to fill IBC with 7 Wafula Chebukatis single-handedly, without even a word from the people of Kenya who are served by the IEBC.
Accompanied by some Azimio leaders including NARC Kenya Party leader Martha Karua and Wiper Party leader Kalonzo Musyoka, Odinga criticized the government for breaking its promise to reduce the high cost of living. They declared that Kenyans had been given the most careless administration as a reward.
Kila mwezi wanaokota bilioni 170. Walielezea bajeti yao ya chakula wakati huu wa ukame ni bilioni 54. Ni kwa nini wananchi wako na njaa?
Whatever happened, na mimi na ndugu Raila mnajua 2013 lisema walituibia kura. Si ni kweli? 2017 wakatuibia. 2022 wameiba. Haiwezekani. Haiwezekani. It cannot be. Either you choose to have a nation, to be a nation, or una inji ambao ni kila mtu for themselves and God for us all.
The leaders emphasized that Ruto and his Kenya Kwanza allies had failed to offer a solution to combat inflation and provide relief to Kenyans.
We are not retreating. We are not surrendering. We are not relenting. Wakati Mheshimiwa Mwai Kibaki alikuwa uongozini, akasema elimu ya watoto itakuwa bure. Saa hii wazazi wanalipa hata primary schools school fees. Na baba alikuwa amesema ataweka elimu bure.
And the days of the great terror are here with us. The waves of terror are flowing among us. The terror of electoral injustice. The terror of stealing from the poor to feed the rich.
Hata Ruto aseme, hata Ruto aseme.
However, Raila noted that President William Ruto had done a splendid job of identifying the problems faced by hustlers, but had only made the situation worse. The former premier also faulted President William Ruto's attempt to allegedly single-handedly construct the election body IEBC, maintaining that they as well have a right to participate in the whole process.
Ruto did a good job identifying the problems of the so-called hustlers. Now he's making their problems worse. Where hustler had 2 problems, now he has 4. Where hustler could put at least 2 meals on the table instead of 3, now you can put only 1.
Odinga and his brigade are expected to hold a public consultations across the country and is expected to hold a rally this Friday in Machakos County before traversing Busia a week later. Mike Kagwongo, TV 47, Nairobi.
And President William Ruto has reiterated his government's plans to raise more government revenue through taxation, saying it is the only way to salvage Kenya's bleeding economy. Ruto says that every citizen eligible to pay tax will pay his dues to the Kenya Kwanza government. Ruto, speaking during a Thanksgiving service in Nairobi, challenged the Kenya Revenue Authority to up its game on tax collection.
How are you, sir?
Taxation is turning to be a drama-filled topic hours after Mama Ngina Kenyatta responded to claims by a section of Kenya Kwanza allied leaders that the Kenyatta family has been evading taxes. President William Ruto, not mincing his words, has reiterated that all eligible Kenyan citizens ought to pay tax to the government.
Si nyinyi mnalipa ushuru? Si ukienda kununua kimbo unalipa ushuru? Si ukienda kununua mkate unalipa ushuru? Mnataka wale wadosi wakose kulipa ushuru? Watu wawache nani? Tunaelewana? Ndio mimi nimesema Kenya sio animal farm. Kenya ni nchi, sisi wote tuko sawa mbele ya katiba na sheria.
Speaking at Deliverance Church International Ruai, the president reiterated that no one will be exempted in paying taxes.
Hatuongei ukabila, hatuongei dini, hatuongei kiwango, hatuongei nani mkubwa ama mdogo, mzee ama kijana. Sisi wote tumekubaliana, and it is the best consensus we can have as a nation. Na ni njia ambayo itatusaidia kuokoa taifa letu kutoka janga la madeni.
Earlier, President William Ruto announced a new system to increase Kenya's vetable revenue collection from 60% to 90%. The Kenya Revenue Authority KRA is aiming to collect an extra 500 billion shillings by June 2023 as part of the government's plan to drive the country out of debt. The head of state, while addressing the congregants, stated that no one will be taxed more than what they ought to pay or face additional taxes, further directing Kenya Revenue Authority to professionally handle tax collection.
Watu wa KRA ni kwamba kila Mkenya apatiwe nafasi ya kulipa bila ya kushurutishwa, bila ya kuangaishwa. Kila mtu atapatiwa nafasi.
After days of accusation and denials, former First Lady Mama Ngina Kenyatta spoke out on the tax evasion controversy, which has put the Kenyatta family at the center of a heated debate. Her statement appears to be in response to allegations made by allies of President William Ruto that her family has been avoiding taxes.
Hakuna mambo ya ati kuharibia wale wengine majina na nini hivi na vile, na hiyo sio kweli. Na watu wanajua hawasemi kweli. Wanataka tu kusema ndio wasikike.
Kijana ingali yuko uhuru, tafuta yeye. Muachane na hiyo ya historia ya Jomo Kenyatta na mama, hatutaki kusikia. Munaguza sasa live wire.
Elsewhere, a section of leaders drawn from the Kenya Kwanza are now calling on the president to crack the whip on former senior government officials who failed to pay taxes as required by the law by invoking various sections of the law where applicable. They have also proposed the arrest of those who allegedly tried to destabilize the nation through public rallies and protest.
Let everybody pay tax. Rais Kenyatta alipe tax. Raila Odinga alipe tax. Na wakienda sana kamata wao wawekwe ndani.
Hao matajiri unaona wanapiga kelele, huo wanakosa kulipa kodi inaitwa tax exemption of 370 billion. Hiyo pesa ukihesabu Mungu atarudi ukingojea kuhesabu hiyo pesa.
That the only way we can build our roads is to make sure that the economy can grow. Each one of us pay their taxes and all of us sit down to solve the problems of this country.
Mimi nataka kuomba Uhuru Kenyatta, if you are a retired president, go and relax in peace. Enjoy your retirement.
In the ongoing discussion on taxation, Azimio leader Raila Odinga is spearheading protests in Nairobi to challenge the Ruto-led government. The nationwide Azimio demonstration will start in Machakos, Nakuru, Kakamega, Kisii, Kisumu and Mombasa before moving on to Kiambu, Garissa, Isiolo, Turkana and culminating in Nairobi. Mwege William, TV 47.
Now, heads of private junior secondary schools claim that they feel discriminated against by the government when it comes to teacher training and textbook distribution, despite having Kenyan children. The start of learning for junior secondary school learners in most public schools has not yet begun, as some school heads say that they have not yet received teachers from the Teachers Service Commission.
It is 1 week since grade 7 learners began reporting to junior secondary schools for the first term.
The teachers are here, they help us what we need. The environment is good and whatever we need, it's here.
Tumefurahia kwa hii masomo yenye serikali imetuletea. Tungeomba watulete walimu.
And we are having fun and the teachers are friendly and they're smart. Yeah, and I'm happy, and my expectations are to learn well and have good grades and make my family happy.
My expectations are that we learn and pass, and our teachers are good and friendly. I believe that more people are going to come and we are going to have fun.
But the situation in public schools is different to that in private schools. For instance, learners in private schools have already begun their lessons.
Expectations zangu ni mtoto wangu apate elimu ambayo itakuwa elimu ya kumsaidia hapo mbeleni. Maana tunaelewa ya kwamba walituambia kwamba CBC itatutolea watoto ambao wakimaliza shule watakuwa kila mmoja anajua talenti yake.
Wito wangu kwa wazazi walio nyumbani ni kuhakikisha kuwa tumeshirikiana vizuri, kwa sababu ushirikiano ndio uzaa matunda mema, na sana sana tunafaa tukumbatie mtaala huu sana, kwa sababu mtaala huu ni unaonyesha umilisi wa mwanafunzi tukijaribu kulinganisha na mtaala ambao uko karibu kuondoka.
Total we have 7 teachers. So immediately when we did admissions on the 30th, 31st, already they were preparing, they were doing scheme of works, they were doing there whatever they were supposed to do, preparing the notes, and after that the lessons are still on. They pretty much started teaching.
Wazazi hata wakiendelea kukuja bado hawajakuwa na hiyo knowledge ya junior secondary, lakini tunajaribu kuwaelimisha. Challenge ya pili venye serikali ilisema, tunajaribu kuadmit venye watu walitoka, hata wenye wanatoka shule zingine wanajaribu kuingia, lakini challenge ile financial challenge tunajaribu kuona venye tunasaidia.
Heads of schools in private junior secondary schools claim that the government has discriminated them when it comes to training of teachers, distribution of textbooks, and provision of capitation funds, and yet they are serving Kenyan children.
Na mtoto wa private wote ni watoto wa government. So wakati wanapeleka vitabu huko, watuletee pia sisi vitabu. Tumetengwa pakubwa zaidi ambapo inabidi sisi wenyewe tutume walimu wetu for training. Hii kitu wangeiweka iwe free, kwa sababu niliona ni kama pesa yenye watu wanatumia kwenda kutrain ni mingi sana.
The government needs to work more on the issue of the materials, the teaching materials, and need to talk to these publishers so that the books should be in the bookshops. It's not that most of the parents, they have money to buy those books, although they are straining. I don't want to say that they are having fun buying them, but still, even if they struggle to get the money, still they are struggling to get them in bookshops.
They can be positive or negative.
It is expected that learners who are yet to enroll in junior secondary schools will do so on Monday. Sharon Baranga, TV 47.
All right, and in studio, Professor Fred Ogola, who's a governance and political analyst, as well as Peter Moshendu, governance expert. Shortly also expecting for Simon Gikuru, the Secretary General ANC, to grace the set this morning. Of course, we'd love to know what is happening with ANC. You would be surprised that perhaps it's not in the Secretary General because of the silence that has been there as well. We had the key leader, exiting to a different direction. And perhaps, of course, there's not a vacuum they are in because they are able leaders that are steer-heading this ship. But away from it, allow us to speak to these gentlemen that are with us this morning. It's a pleasure to have you, gentlemen. Thank you so much for creating time to be with us this morning. Always looking forward to hear from you. And so as you tell us, Jambo, last week we spoke extensively about the question of education, and today we have Form 1 students reporting back to school, even as those ones that are in junior secondary are still hoping and believing that they're going to start their classes. So one would want to argue, what was the point of taking them back to school when it was not all set? So karibu sana, Professor.
Thank you very much, Linda. Mm-hmm. Yes. So, of course, my main statement here has always been that education has the highest ROI, the highest return on investment. And anybody playing with the education system is actually playing with a big future. Remember that there are some countries that live purely on their quality of human resource. If you go to a country like Mauritius, they don't have natural resources. They don't have these minerals people are talking about. But the quality of the human resource they have is great. Go to Singapore. Singapore is a place that does not have all those natural resources as well. But Singapore, people have been saying we want to be like Singapore. I've had big political leaders saying at a time Singapore was behind Kenya, and now Singapore has gone ahead of Kenya. So the main concern here is that, as you hear one woman there stating that they were promised that CBC is going to ensure that students can tell what their talent is. Remember CBC, the whole idea was that we needed to develop creative students. We needed to ensure that parents are also involved in the process. But with all this confusion which is going, any woman or father or mother in this country is worried where to take their kids to school. Should you take them through the Kenyan system, or should you take them through the foreign system? And you remember that this foreign system and the Kenyan system still meet at some point. Because once you finish secondary school, there's no foreign universities in Kenya. The universities are Kenyan universities.
Yeah.
So these are the challenges that they are facing, and taking a child out of the country to go study elsewhere is more expensive. And maybe just a few people can afford it. If you look, so what I'm trying to say here is that the lack of trying to make decisions is hard, and I disagree with the point them saying CBC is a train that left the station, just have to jump somewhere in the way. But which station to where? If station to nowhere, why do you jump in this train? So at the moment, Linda, it is not yet very clear to me where this CBC is taking these children, because my analysis is clear. Context matters. The context of the Kenya education system must be aligned to job opportunities.
Yeah.
Must be aligned to where our industry is going. Where will they find themselves working? You cannot study for almost 12 years, that's what we did, 844. Then after that you realize, oh, which career should I be taking? So the alignment between the industrial revolution that should take place in Kenya, where jobs is, where is the most important job? For example, doctors. I can tell you, I want to advise my son to become a doctor. Do you know why? Because doctors actually end up being frustrated. They pay less. Some of them quit that career because they discover that when you are going to school, they tell you the biggest career is being a doctor, being a lawyer. But then you realize after you finish university, the lowest paid. And there used to be something said, there are those who live in the servant quarters and there are those who live in the main house. The broker lives in the main house. The doctor lives in the servant quarters. So therefore, we'd rather be a broker than being a doctor. And that's why I'm trying to say we have not yet aligned our industry with our education system, and that's why CBC is still not relevant, because that does not get children actually get what they need to get out of education. Yes.
Right, Peter Mushendu, that there is some hope, that we have seen some of the students that are there hoping and still crossing fingers for the best. Parents as well hopeful that it's not all lost. Just where do we stand, or how do we rate this system of education that we are adopting, and where we are, and just how then do we get to a space where we're going to compensate for all this lost time? Remember, it's from COVID-19. And so this will be more or less like double compensation for these students. Losing about 2, 3, 4 years is not a joke.
Well, I've always insisted, and I will insist this morning, that one of the two things that you must not play politics with is the education and the health of our nation, because they form the very backbone that will make this country thrive. I've seen, as he has said, most developed countries are now struggling to import expertise in education. You go to Malawi today, the biggest foreign import of education expert is from this country. And that tells you that if we are going to have our nation evolve into what we want it to be in 20 years, one thing we must make sure that we do not have to import, it is the expertise in education. As he has said, look at the doctors that we need in this republic. If we are going to achieve universal health care, it means that we would actually need to put our education at the very top of the most excellent education systems in the world. You remember the other day, President Ruto was in the UK, and he negotiated for Kenyan nurses to go work there. Do you realize we could not even hit 5%?
And the most unfortunate thing about that thing is that it was on the basis of basic English.
This is the whole thing. And that tells you, if you cannot get the basic English, then what kind of a doctor, what kind of a nurse are you? So I think one of the things that it is up the challenge to the government of the day, it is this education. Well, let's not kid ourselves. We did not expect that junior secondary is going to be just a smooth transition.
Okay.
We knew that. As much as we were prepared or however prepared we would have been, even if we were better prepared than we were today, still would have been a challenge considering it is in its initial stages. But what the government must not do and what the parents must not do is allow politics to set in terms of education. I am still hopeful that the Presidential Working Party on Education is going to get this right, because we have to get the best preparation for our kids before we hand them over to the economy of this country. We must prepare them well and make them competitive enough to be able to compete even outside the world. And therefore, I think what we must do as a nation is pull together, forget the politics of the day, and let the concern, that primary concern for our kids, be the driving force in terms of making sure that this works. This is the onus on the Minister for Education, for junior secondary school to be able to work. He has to make sure that all the monies are released in time. We have agreed that we want to employ more teachers so that they can be able to deal with junior secondary issue. We have said those who are already in the system will be added more training to be able to understand the junior secondary system. And we have also joined the World Bank in terms of funding the building of laboratories for junior secondary. Then this must be very quickly, because as you know, kids are not tallying in the junior secondary. They're just there for a very short season. And therefore, we must maximize on giving them the best at that. So the onus is on government to actually strike a conversation with the kids. They are, as a result of a better working organization between government and the parents, who are the stakeholders. The government must lead that conversation in terms of forging the way forward for this education system that we are saying. And as I've said, well, CBC is here with us. It's not going to go away. And building and shaping it is far much better than those who would suggest that we scramble the CBC, because this will be in expense of our kids who are already in that system and who have already invested about, is it 3-4 years now? So I think for me, the most important thing, as Doctor has said, as much as the train has left the station, we must re-engineer it to be able to get us to the next destination.
So, Linda, just my main concern is that you have to remember that this country is not running in a vacuum. This country had what is called the Vision 2030. That is the blueprint of the country. And in this Vision 2030, there is what they call the social pillar, and education falls under the social pillar. And the implementation, which was put under Medium Plan 2, was 2013-2018. By now, we should be very clear on how our education system should be running. But now we are looking like this train has left the station, but it's a confused train. Have you ever seen a car when you're driving on the road and you see the other driver coming and you don't know whether they're going left or right? I'm sure as one of the passengers, or if you like another driver, you may just go over the road and wait and see what happens. I think the country went and brought politics into the education and confused it. I've read it. I don't see where CBC was supposed to be. Imagine the economic planning for the Vision 2030 was very clear that we set foundation by building human capital. And what happens is that now we have not done that. Between 2013 and 2018, the big investment was supposed to gear towards that. And that's when this was under the leadership of President Uhuru Kenyatta. They brought in the CBC. Now, when the new government comes, even during the campaign, they're already saying they're going to scrap off the CBC. Remember, the government takes over in 2022, meaning that he is reversing whatever President Uhuru was putting in place. And that's what we call politicizing education. And I'm sorry to extend by saying it has been something we have seen much in Kenya Kwanza government, whereby nearly everything that Uhuru Kenyatta had put in terms of project are being reversed. The staff he put in place are being replaced. And you're replacing them with less competent people. And you're replacing also a superior system of CBC with the philosophy it had with the less superior, because you want to have short-term pleasing of your populace for the sake of remaining in power, but actually killing the core. So if the Kenya Kwanza was supposed to come and read Vision 2030 and stick by Vision 2030, because why Vision 2030 has to be listened to, we had what we call the social and economic forums that came together and said this is the way Kenya. And why this was a brilliant idea, it was to secure a country away from politics, whereby there would be structures. If you come in as president, you lead the nation towards that Vision 2030. You don't come with your own Vision 2030. And that's why the issue was, even when the president came with the Big Four agenda, the Big Four agenda was a summary of what could be crystallized under Vision 2030. In this Kenya Kwanza government, tell me what you'd call something that looks like Agenda 4. It doesn't look anything. It's just like people are just politicking and confusing people. I've been saying that this Kenya Kwanza government needs to go back and actually have a retreat and tell us where they're taking the country. Because I can tell you, Linda, from very objective opinion, I do not know where Kenya is being taken. Yesterday, I opened several TV stations. Headline news was that the president, deputy president, Sakaja and a few people were for prayers. Now, I'm saying the people are having high cost of electricity. Education is having these challenges that it's having. Cost of living is high, fuel is high. The dollar is 140 shillings. $1 almost 140. Can we solve the nation's issues with prayers? Can question. We fast and change the economy? And I look at this, what happens in the year 2008, when there was the global financial crisis. Remember, different nations responded differently. So I can mention them. Portugal, there was something called pigs. Portugal, Italy, Greece, and Spain. They went through prayers. They were saying, we've seen so many crises, it will just go. Germany, France, those big economies went down and revamped the economy. All of a sudden, all those pigs were in crisis. The one that did something about the economy survived. In Kenya, we are in prayers, isn't it? Now go, Tanzania discovered that the dollar was, the global economy was bad. They changed a few things. Uganda, same. Rwanda, the same. Now we are looking at the depreciation of Kenya shilling has gone so much, while the regional currencies like Rwanda, Tanzania, and Uganda have stabilized. So the depreciation of Kenya shilling is not because the dollar has appreciated. It's because Kenyans have sat down and started praying. So we are having the leader of Kenya Kwanza in prayers. People are putting hands on them. They're being prayed upon. Raila is busy in rallies telling us how elections were stolen from him and there is electoral justice. Tell me who is thinking about how cost of living is going to be fixed.
Are they not? There's a bit of nice report or a positive report here, gentlemen. If you have the Standard newspaper that is on the business beat, it speaks of cost of living expected to ease and further as food prices decline. And this is not just them, it's a report that has been given to us by the Central Bank of Kenya. Can't we just look at some of this positivity and perhaps say that even in prayers, things can happen? Allow us to take a quick short break, Mushendu, and then we come back, respond to that.
Usiyakubalie maumivu ya misuli kukatiza ratiba yako. Kaluma Pain Balm ni dawa ya kusugua iliyotengenezwa kutoka kwa miche maalum ili kutuliza maumivu ya misuli. Kaluma Pain Balm. Maumivu yakizidi, pata ushauri wa daktari.
On the next episode of The Grind, we sit down with Grace Moreka, the owner of Amore Fashions, to learn more about what it takes to run an award-winning fashion enterprise
started all the way back when I was in school. I was selling tumba, second-hand clothes to back up tuition and upkeep. So back in 2014, we opened Amore. Actually, A is for Amadi and Moreka. Me, so it's the initials of our names, Amore.
Monday, 8:30 p.m.
Sona moja imetengenezwa kwa njia spesheli ili kupambana na maumivu kwa haraka. Sona moja ina aspirin kama kiungo. Sona moja, kitulizo kamili. Maumivu yakizidi, pata ushauri wa daktari.
You are watching TV47, the home of untold stories.
Okay, well, interesting here. Professor says that this is more of a survey, so we cannot run with this. But, some of the facts placed on the table and the questions key to understanding the matrix of the economy. I mean, something as basic as, well, do you think food prices will go down? And people will highlight the Ukraine war. People will highlight the difficulties that came with the pandemic. And now that this one has eased, then there's that general feeling that perhaps there's going to be some bit of ease. And the new government coming on board with lots of promises and maybe a bit of action or so to speak, which really is action that does not seem to convince you, Linda, Professor. Allow me to introduce Simon Gikuru first of all. It's an honor to have you. You're still the Secretary General of ANC. Sometimes some of these things is good to ask and get answers from the horse's mouth.
Oh yes, good morning viewers. Thank you very much, Linda. Good to see you again.
Good to see you.
Happy New Year, Happy New everything.
Karibu sana.
Oh yes, very much so. I'm still...
congratulations.
Oh yes, of course.
I should have started by saying that.
Thank you very much. I think we need to congratulate Kenyans because they are the ones that owns this victory. And as you've mentioned very much so, I'm still Secretary General of the second largest party in the ruling coalition. And I'm very excited to join my brothers this morning for the morning cafe. Yes.
Karibu sana.
Thank you very
and when
much.
he says that he speaks of the Kenya Kwanza coalition, at least
Yes,
you know that, Professor.
No. Just before
Professor says the thing.
Professor tries to lessen the time from me, I want to answer him. This is the second time I'm sitting next to him and he is speaking about Kenya Kwanza and prayers. And I'm asking myself, it is on a Sunday. It is a day for church. You expect William Ruto to continue politics just like the other presidents have been doing? I mean, if a president goes to celebrate the doings of the Lord under which faith he believes in every Sunday, somebody should not come here in the morning and politicize about it. Because on Monday today, the Honorable William Ruto is not somewhere in prayers. He's probably somewhere opening a project or...
perhaps to play the devil's advocate. You've seen the deputy also saying that,
Let me tell you.
And it wasn't in charge.
If he has a problem with how Kenya Kwanza government is doing its thing, it is all right and within his right to criticize the government of Kenya Kwanza. But you should not criticize that government and try to leverage the same criticism with the faith those who are in that government believe in. If today the Honorable Fred Ogora here wishes to spend his Sunday speaking about politics and scrutinizing what government is doing, he is welcome to do it. But what we must not do, Linda, and I said it here last time, let us not, I am a Christian. I believe in God. I believe that every day when I wake up, when I leave this studio today, I am going to work. I am going to try and get a daily bread for my family. But that does not mean that because in the morning I woke up and I prayed and I asked God to give me wisdom and to give me power to do it, that I am just using prayers for nothing. So for me, I detest the fact that people want to criticize this government through the faith-based ideologies of those who read it, because they do not tell us every other day to pray for them. They are working. And you see, if they are working and they are asking God to help them to do it, it is not a sin. And therefore, let nobody come to this set and critic government based on the fact that the president every other Sunday is attending Thanksgiving prayer somewhere. If you want to critic government based on the ideas they have put on the table. But if we want to sit here and talk about faith and talk about prayers, I don't think we are heading this conversation in the right direction.
Okay.
And therefore, let Daktari here, Professor here, cease to criticize people because of what they believe in. I mean, one of the most contentious issues after land in this country is faith.
Yeah,
and if they want to do politics of faith, I think they want to misread this country, and it is not good. Critic government based on ideologies that they have put forward.
Linda have the right to reply.
Yes, you will have the right to reply. You will have the right to
Professor.
reply. Yeah. When they talk about CBC and talking about, I have heard him say that President Ruto is revoking appointment of other people. I mean, it is a constitution that guarantees him that authority to hire and fire. And if he wishes to fire those people he found, and put people who believe in his system and his way of doing government, let Fred here not think 1 minute that he can control the president and how he wishes to draw his government. So if somebody has been fired as a chairman of a parastatal or a member of this board or that corporation, that is within the right of the president. Let nobody come and politicize that. And then let me also ask Fred, how many professionals and the people he's trying to describe as the most qualified, where were they when this nation was accumulating all those unmanageable loans? I mean, let nobody think that having the biggest, and I am not by any chance demeaning the fact that Professor here is not, he is a resource. But we must also agree that having 10 degrees or 15 degrees does not guarantee us that if you get that position, you will perform. You have to be a team player. You have to understand the economy. You have to understand the system under which you're working. So let him not come and tell us that the people appointed are not competent, they are not competitive. I mean, has the president veered away from the qualification of those he has appointed?
Fair enough. And Simon, before we come to you, fair enough. Make it 30 seconds so that at least...
Yes, I'll make it very brief.
Yes.
Let me be clear that until now, Linda, let Peter tell us one stroke of genius in terms of sorting out the economy that the president has pronounced. But I'll tell him several occasions where the deputy president has said he's praying for the rain. He's praying for the economy. They are fasting for Kenya. I'll tell him several occasions. I can even tell you, if I quote him, I've heard him more than 120 times talking about prayers and faith to fix the economy and to fix the climatic conditions. But I have not, like for example, Linda, when Kibaki took over, when he was in a wheelchair, when he's being sworn in, he pronounced free primary education. It allowed the economy to resuscitate from there. The primary education was just about it's true. It was about circulating. People can buy pencil, can buy pens. There was a way on which entrepreneurs, some people left the bank to start businesses to leverage on that statements by free primary education. Now tell me anybody who has left their job anywhere to follow any pronouncement from Kenya Kwanza government. Now, even the issues about Ukraine, all these things are excuses. It is stated that Russia's economy is more stable than even the American economy as we speak now. Yesterday, I was following this guy called Larry Summers. He was the former head of the Economic Council for the US. They were discussing about America's debt crisis. The debt ceiling was being discussed yesterday, meaning that all these things of debt is not an issue. Debt, according to me as economists, is an asset. How it is used is the main issue. So what I can say here is that let us get him Monday to Friday or to Saturday, tell us about this economic thing. Last time we were here even with Peter Mbai, he was just mentioning that they are having what's called supplementary budget. So supplementary budget towards what? So I'm saying I have not been very clear. Now I'm even happy one of the party members who says he's the one leading the coalition, the second large coalition in the government. Let him tell us, what is that stroke of genius? The issue was taxes yesterday mentioned, isn't it? Collecting taxes to put on what? Collecting taxes, what I call I would call them lagging variables. I collect taxes. Leading variables, I'll take this tax, put in this to get that. What are we getting when you collect taxes?
Are we criticizing this government a little bit too early?
Well. Thank you very much, Linda. It is indeed a very hot seat this morning. You can see just sparks, Prof and Peter are on fire.
We have the extinguisher, not to worry.
I am. Oh, is it there?
It is somewhere around, so yes.
Very safe then for us. Yeah, I think as you've said, the Kenya Kwanza government was elected on the platform of bringing change and involving every other Kenyan to participate in nation building, in the economy of the country. And I think, as you've said, it would be too early for us to start being very critical while we've not given the president and his team enough time to reorganize this economy. Linda, you note that as Professor is saying, and my friend here, the issue of debt was one of the main major issues in our campaign. And the issue of debt ceiling and over borrowing and overburdening the economy is an issue that is at the heart of this government, because we cannot rebuild the economy. We cannot get the 6 million Kenyans who are, especially the young people, we cannot put them on jobs until we fix the economy and we manage our debt. So when we are talking about the modus operandi as to how that will be done, I think it's only fair that we give the president, the cabinet, and every other person in the Kenya Kwanza government enough time to fix this. So I think I would want to support my brother Peter here, that let us not just criticize for the sake of criticizing. I hear Professor asking, we want to manage debt so that we can do what? I don't know whether he was around when we were doing the campaign, because we had the most convincing manifesto. We are calling it the plan. And if you look at our plan, what we are saying is we want to put young people to work.
How often do people follow their manifestos, really?
Well,
and even the question of agriculture, you have in a large way gone contrary to what your manifesto
Linda, I've had the chance, the lucky chance to be with the president and the deputy president, the prime minister, and I have understood what they want to do for this country. So when you ask how often we would follow the manifesto, I will tell you, I have not seen a person as determined as President William Ruto to stick to the manifesto of Kenya Kwanza, to make sure that we put our young people back to work, to make sure that this country is not what we are calling the animal farm.
How are the conditions on ground, and as well his foot soldiers aligned to, just following this dream, and as well, like you rightfully put, that he is determined? Just how are the rest of the people determined to make sure that indeed you abide by the manifesto and successfully?
And that's why we are coming back to what Peter is saying.
Yeah.
It's a process. It is not an event. It takes time.
I'm sure you've had people...
the Constitution and the laws allow him.
I'm sure you've had people say that during the Kibaki times, a person that you people wanted to emulate largely, and as well during your campaigns, this was mentioned, almost instantly, and reports are there. Upon swearing, declaration of free education.
You cannot say almost. You cannot say almost instantly because we were around.
Okay.
It took a bit of time.
No. There's some declarations that were made almost immediately and swung to action.
I think,
somehow.
Linda, if you look at what is happening, you realize that President Ruto and this government has also made declarations.
Okay, well,
and I wanted to come to what Peter was saying, that part of this process to achieve what we promised Kenyans is making sure you put the right people in the right positions. So there has to be a lot of reorganization of government. We have to see some people exit. It may not augur very well with everyone, but it has to be done, because you have to select people who understand the vision, who understand your plan, who understand what you want to achieve for the country.
Yeah.
For example, we are talking about the Hustler Fund. If you look at the intake of the Hustler Fund and the rate at which it is changing young people's lives, it is unbelievable. And we are saying 800,000 people have already repaid back what they borrowed from the Hustler Fund. And that is why you are seeing that slowly by slowly, we are picking up. Of course, this is not without obstacles. And so I think for me, what I would want to emphasize this morning is that let us give this government a chance. You cannot almost immediately after an election, which was very contested, which was hotly contested, which underwent the due processes of the law. Kenyans exhibited a lot of restraint, and they went through the pain of waiting for the IBC to announce. Thereafter, there was the whole issue of the Supreme Court petition, and they waited very patiently. And then thereafter, you come out on the streets, and then you want to go back to your word, and you participated in this whole process. So we have to adopt the culture of believing in the rule of law, believing in constitutionalism, believing in institutions. And I think that is where we are having a challenge with our brothers in Azimio. So I think, bottom line, let us give this government a chance. Professor, before I come to you, lifting his hand.
Professor, before I come to you, Peter Moshendu, the executive is at the heart of making sure that some of these functions that we're talking about then are a success. And I don't know whether it's me or you perhaps have walked online, have listened to few Kenyans who really do not seem to have confidence in the executive. And in this case, then I am referring to the CSs, perhaps the PSs, and a conversation over a reshuffle, not even 3 months into the formation of the cabinet, is a little bit scaring, to say the least. What do you think of the cabinet of President Dr. William Ruto, and whether then it will be handy or very important, I mean very instrumental in making sure that he addresses and achieves some of these things that he intends to?
Well, I would say something I said here a few weeks ago, if not months, that the least time you can give a cabinet minister to actually show results is at least a year to be able to, because we are talking about, Linda, a cabinet that has come and just in the middle of setting up the secretariats of those state departments, the court holds the system. We just recently had the PSS take over being charged at the end of this year. And you definitely know that that cabinet without a proper working secretariat that is geared toward the ideas of the president would have been difficult for them to start achieving. Now we have the cabinet secretaries and the permanent secretaries in place. We give them an opportunity to actually show that they can actually discharge the mandate that has been entrusted to them by the president. But I will say this, and I say this having been someone who supports this government without conditions, that this government must get the conversations that are affecting Kenyans at the center stage. We are having a conversation on paying tax. Is a very important conversation that we must address the tax regime of this country so that, number one, it is seen to be balanced for everybody, both the rich and the poor. But equally, it must be seen to actually be considerate to Kenyans who almost have nothing in their pocket. We have to look at how do we form a tax regime that is both addressing the earnings of government and at the same time it's addressing the plight of Kenyans today. That is a conversation that we must have. As to the conversation of Raila Odinga and Uhuru Kenyatta, who is paying tax or not, I personally submit to you, as someone who supports this government, that is not the conversation I'm hearing in the village where I come from. The conversation I'm hearing in the village is, how do we get jobs for young people who do not have jobs? How are we going to put money in their pocket? And this is where the cabinet secretaries are becoming very important. Specifically, my eyes in thought is seriously set on my former party leader, the Honorable Moses Kuria. He is the Minister for Industrialization and Investment. Today, and my Secretary General here will agree with me, manufacturing business, it's going down rather than going up. Manufacturers are running out of this country because, one, our power regime in terms of have we been able to make power, accessible quickly? Have we been able to make the tariffs friendly? That is one of the reasons why the cost of production goes high and no manufacturer is willing to manufacture in this country. If you look at the ease of doing business in this republic, again, it is the responsibility of those entrusted by the president in cabinet to ensure that there is ease of doing business. I keep saying, if you land at the Kigali International Airport today, in Rwanda here, if you have the proper documentation required, you can walk out of that. You can walk out of that airport to Kigali City with all proper legal registered documents for a company. Because they have decided and they have made it their business to make sure the ease of doing business in Rwanda is so easy that it will attract investors. And therefore, I think for me, when you talk about the cabinet being reshuffled, I think that would be something Fred Ogora and the friends would celebrate, because it will be a show of lack of faith in the cabinet of William Ruto. So I think for me, it is only fair to the CSS to allow them 12 months to start showing results. And that is the challenge. And let me tell you, when the president has entrusted you as a cabinet minister to deliver, you have no alternative. You will either shape in or ship out.
All right, fair enough. Professor, I know you want us to balance this because it feels like it's Kenya Kwanza versus Azimio.
Kenya Kwanza.
Allow us to read this, which perhaps is a viewer who is more aligned to Azimio. So we create that balance. James Kiplagat from Nakuru says, how do you collect tax to give back to corruption that is back in the same government? The government has lost direction. Kibaki never started looking for Moi, but started working on projects. Ruto is revenging on the Kenyatta family. All this is going to be hogwash if you're not careful. Allow us to listen into these bites and then we come to you, Professor.
Okay.
All right. The president who says, well, he's focused on this. And as well.
Mimi nauliza nyinyi, si nyinyi mnalipa ushuru? Si ukienda kununua kimbo unalipa ushuru? Si ukienda kununua mkate unalipa ushuru? Mnataka wale wadosi wakose kulipa ushuru? Watu wawache nani? Tunaelewana? Ndio mimi nimesema Kenya sio animal farm. Kenya ni nchi, sisi wote tuko sawa mbele ya katiba na sheria. Si ni kweli? Na mimi nafurahi kwamba sasa Wakenya wote wamekubaliana hakuna mambo ya waiver ya tax. Kila mtu awe mrefu mfupi, awe tajiri maskini, awe anajulikana hajulikani, awe mweupe mwembamba, kila mtu atalipa ushuru kwa Kenya yetu. Ama mnasemaje? Si kila mtu alipe? Kwa sababu nchi yetu karibu inazama kwa mambo ya madeni. Na hiyo madeni itaumiza nchi yetu. Na dawa ya deni ni sisi wenyewe kulipa ushuru, ndio tuendeshe serikali yetu kwa ushuru ya taifa letu la Kenya, sio kwa madeni ya watu wengine ambao kesho watahangaisha uchumi wetu. Tumekubaliana? Tuko pamoja hapo? Lakini mimi nafurahi sana hata wale wadosi wamekubali ya kwamba ushuru watalipa. Hiyo maneno mzuri kabisa. Hapo tuendanishe na hapo. Ile maneno ya zamani ya waiver ya huyu, waiver ya ule, kwa sababu anajulikana, kwa sababu ni mtu ya mtu mkubwa, hiyo mambo wasahau. Kila mtu atalipa ushuru Kenya hii. Hata huyu jamaa amekubali kila mtu alipe ushuru.
Quite a delicate balance that on one side it is important that everybody else then pays to Caesar what belongs to Caesar. On the other side, there's the aspect of politics, of witch hunt, and perhaps to explain why most of the African leaders would want to be president for life, because then there's that fear. Once you're out, then your successor is going to clearly come chasing and come, trying to witch hunt on you. What do you make of this?
So first of all, Linda, thank you. This is a very good conversation. And first of all, let me tell Peter, I am not here to celebrate the failure of the president. I told you, Linda, in live television, that what is important, the president must deliver, because if I celebrate his failure, and my own relatives are sleeping hungry, even me, economically, we're affected. Kenyans, 80% of them are traders, and they import to trade. The dollar is doing bad. So The government must deliver. We cannot wait and say, let us wait for someone else to come. For now, let's celebrate Ruto's failure. Ruto's failure is all Kenyans' failure, and all of us will face it in our pockets. So I cannot support any failure. So I would be very happy if the cabinet delivers. So Peter, please, we are together. So the second thing I want to state here clearly about the tax, let me start with that issue of taxes. The president's intention may be good, but as I told you, the execution framework of government is not being followed in this current administration. The president was supposed just to make an executive order. We will ensure taxes are paid by everyone, then shut up. You understand? KRA should issue an order and go for this report. The president is not work to collect taxes. KRA is not even a government body. KRA is contracted by the government to collect taxes on our behalf. If they executed quietly, Kibaki said, kulipa ushuru ni kujitegemea. Did you hear Kibaki mention anybody's name? He went quiet. KRA were given targets. They were given incentives to collect taxes. The president, as I said before, issues what is called an executive order E. Then the second thing is ministry under treasury issues called ministerial policy around taxes, M. The next thing we have what departmental framework, D. You understand? Then the agency, which is KRA, comes up with a framework to collect taxes. Issue these letters to these people who are supposed to collect taxes and keep quiet. Going to start saying, oh, you see, Nani, this one, this person. Now that is politicizing tax collection.
But don't you want it to be mentioned if there is a problem? If these people have not been
Kibaki
paid?
said, kulipa ushuru ni kujitegemea, sivyo? All of us know, isn't it? Then the framework should be that if you are the president, you issue executive order.
Okay.
Ministers are there to work. That's why cabinet is not a cabinet, because according to me, the president is the president, he is the cabinet, he is the PSS, he is the agencies, because he's trying to collect taxes, he's trying to come with frameworks. According to me, Kibaki let people work. And that's why I'm telling you, and I can tell you again, when they say they should be given more time, Linda, if you are a coach, you can tell whether your team will score. If your player receives the first pass, how they handle the first touch tells you they'll score.
Okay.
So how the Kenya Kwanza receive the first ball, how they are tackling it, tells me they are they're not about to score. And that's my concern.
Okay.
If there are, no, please, just give me time.
No, Professor, we have to balance this.
So I'm almost done, because I'm sure you're taking back to Kenya Kwanza.
No, not really to Kenya Kwanza. We're giving every individual here.
I'm not in Azimio. Just like I told you, I'm equally wondering why Raila Israeli is helping us, isn't it? I'm also wondering why these prayers are helping us. But I'm trying to state clearly that we shall know how it works. Let me go and answer the issue Hustler Fund you talked about, isn't it? We went to court on Friday. These are facts, isn't it? And the court agreed with us that the president has appointed a board against the law and procedure, and they have issued an order that those directors cannot be sworn in until the case is heard and determined, so that they can comply. So when I hear my brother Simon preaching to us about constitutional frameworks, and already we are seeing Kenya Kwanza is not following it, because this is from the court. I'm not talking about my opinion here.
Right.
I sponsored a petition in court as a Kenyan to ensure things happen right. And the judge has agreed with me. So what I'm trying to say, that is very clear, they're not following it. And in fact, one of the directors in that board called me yesterday evening, which is a Sunday, and started complaining to me what I'm doing. And I told him, if I'm you, I won't sit in a board where 25 billion has been disbursed before you sit in that board. In fact, these statistics talking about the repayment rate, who is giving them? There is no secretariat. There is no board. Who is giving it? Twitter, Facebook handle, Instagram is the report we are getting. All those reports, let him give us a report coming from a body that is telling us about those things.
Let me take it from you, Professor, I'll take a quick short break.
I'll
take a short
break. The last second is, let us know how much taxes can be collected by those who have been defaulting, because we want numbers. How much will you collect? And then how much will we take to which project so that the economy can be resuscitated? That's
interesting.
My main point.
Interesting. And when we're talking about numbers, then it becomes a little bit complicated. I've had specialists here argue that it's fine. You could not go much into the numbers, but can you just have a conversation with KRA and perhaps if there's going to be a waiver or there's going to be an arrangement, an agreement that this is the amount of money that you bring, and then from there we start afresh. All this conversation is here. SG, allow us to to take a quick short break and then we come to you.
You are watching TV 47, the home of untold stories.
Hey, maumivu ya kichwa na kukosesha amani? Kaluma Strong hutuliza maumivu ya kichwa, maumivu ya mwili na hata huondoa joto jingi mwilini. Kaluma Strong ina aspirin kama kiungo. Maumivu yakizidi, muone daktari.
Are you looking for a distinguished institution of academic and professional excellence to kickstart your career? Then join KIPS Technical College, a top-NEC, CASNEB and NEET examination center in Kenya that is fully accredited by TVET Authority with over 90% national exam pass rate. We offer high-quality, hands-on training in engineering, hospitality, tourism, journalism, ICT, business, accounting, hairdressing and beauty, health sciences, community development and foreign language, and have placed over 26,000 graduates since 1994. Our state-of-the-art equipment, well-equipped workshops, indoor and outdoor sports facilities make us the preferred choice.
During my training, I was able to become Miss KIPS, which has helped me to achieve my goals in community development.
Admissions for January 2023 intake is ongoing. For more information, call 0720-813-113 or visit any of our 6 campuses located within Nairobi. KIPS Technical College, your sure path to success.
Usiyakubalie maumivu ya misuli kukatiza ratiba yako. Kaluma Pain Balm ni dawa ya kusugua iliyotengenezwa kutoka kwa miche maalum ili kutuliza maumivu ya misuli. Kaluma Pain Balm. Maumivu yakizidi, pata ushauri wa daktari.
Watching TV 47, the home of untold stories.
All right, so we have Professor Fredo Gola as well as governance expert Peter Mushendu, and I'd want to call him SG squared, SG because his name is Simon Gikuru as as now he's an SG NC party. Thank you so much once again, gentlemen. So SG, here we are, and it's all fire, shots fired on your government as well as your coalition. And while one would want to look at this as, firing, the reality is that there are some facts that are being put there. And lots of feedback. Let me just read them so you can, expound it further for us. Wambui in CAK, Keroche woman who is a Senate and billionaire is also paid. The professor is correct. You collect tax to take where? That is a question that they're asking. How do you go out to hunt using taxation only to give it the same tax evaders or to the same tax evaders? Of course, citing some of the key people that we've seen their cases withdrawn. And, they ask how much tax has the president himself paid? Interesting. And why is it that there's not a proper self-audit or lifestyle audit that we were talking about? And says that if the president continues to join in onto this shouting match, it'll be too much like what we saw with the former Italian Prime Minister, that is Silvio. And of course, if not careful, then President William Ruto will take Kenya to the Italian system that collapsed. Let us watch this space. Also, Raila will win on this.
Very well. I think the conversation is getting interesting by the day.
Yeah.
And first and foremost, I want to address Professor's insinuations that the president is acting as a cabinet minister, as a PS, and as a tax collector. First and foremost, you realize that the president has never mentioned anybody's name when it comes to these issues of taxes. He has just addressed the issue of tax payment in general as any other head of state would. So when you want to insinuate that he's targeting anybody or a certain person or a certain family or group of families, I think that would be very unfair. He has just said that look at where we inherited this country from. And for us to achieve what we want for Kenyans, to achieve our manifesto, we must streamline tax collection. He did not mention anybody. So I think, Professor, let us be fair, because I have never, not once, ever heard the president mention anybody's name. So up to that point, let us clear that. So I think, again, when you ask what has this government done and all that, and by the way, President William Ruto is a high achiever. And you saw that in December, when he was in the US, the American Academy of Achievement awarded him.
Yes.
They gave him the Golden Plate Award. Come on. Are you telling me that these people don't know what they are doing? This award has only been given to people like Bill Clinton, Ronald Reagan, Barack Obama. So I think when we talk about how the president is running the show, it would only be fair that we criticize, but we also criticize objectively, not just for the sake of it.
Does that then cement the hand of the West, perhaps, in this whole matter?
Yeah.
Because then we've also had that, and during the campaigns, you had that, oh, well, there could be the hand of the West that is, supporting one side, and perhaps they want this president installed and successfully, this in the battle against China and all this. Does this cement that somehow?
Well, as to whether West or East is supporting this government, that is another level of international politics. And obviously, you know that these are axes that have a lot of business interests. They will always want to interfere because they have their multinationals that would want to participate in our economy.
Yeah.
But you realize that the president is very keen to make sure that he balances all these interests. But the point that I was coming to, Linda, was that what have we done so far as a coalition? 4.5 million Kenyans have been removed from CRB. When the president was coming into office, you remember there was a stalemate between the executive and the judiciary. Among the first things he did was to appoint those judges who had been unfairly put on the store, just waiting there.
Okay.
So when we are saying what has this government done and what have we not done, can we also try and look and see how we are moving slowly but surely? When we come to the issue of the Inspector General of Police, making sure that the institution of the police is independent. So these are some of the things we are not hearing from Professor. And finally, I think I'm very happy that this show has unveiled the veil of those we are calling very litigious Kenyans. Thank you very, Professor, for declaring yourself. Because there are people hell-bent to make sure that government cannot move because of case after case in the corridors of justice. So Peter is explaining here, the court will give you the benefit of doubt when you appear before a judge, and probably you have some orders. But please, let us not just go to lodge cases for the sake of it. And so, my friend Professor here, you realize that as Peter is saying, you are saying you don't support Azimio, you are a very fair man, you are a very objective man, but finally he has unveiled the faces behind these things.
Interesting. And
the
we're going
PSS
to
could not be sworn in. Now we are speaking of even the CASs cannot be appointed. Now we are even saying this cannot be done. Please, let us not just enjoy crippling government simply because you were not very happy that Kenya Kwanza won. That is not fair. And if you're saying that you truly wish Kenya well, if you're saying that you truly wish the president well, come on then. We must be nationalistic enough.
And fail to mention or to pinpoint instances where we feel things are not going well. And even when you talk about CRB, SG, and we're going to loop in Peter Mushendu shortly, most of these people landed on CRB because they defaulted. Is this the kind of culture we want to, sort of adapt, a scenario where people are going to default on their responsibilities and then they are let...
It's much more than that.
Yeah?
It's about what the previous government subjected Kenyans to. This is a government that wanted to enslave Kenyans in their own land.
That's a government that the president was in.
We need to free up Kenyans. And that is exactly what William Ruto and the government of Kenya Kwanza is doing. We want Kenyans to be free to thrive in the economy, to participate. And you cannot do that when you're listed on CRB simply because you could not pay for some 500 shillings that you borrowed because the economy had been dilapidated, as we keep saying.
Fair enough.
It's not about the culture of probably people not paying their loans or their dues. It's about freeing Kenyans. Because remember, we were campaigning on the platform of telling Kenyans, we want to bring in economic liberation. How do you bring in economic liberation? Is to make sure that you free Kenyans from such kind of chains. And that is exactly what we are doing.
Interesting. No. Professor, I think it will be fair for us to listen to Peter Moshendo, and then I'll allow you that chance. Okay. But even before you come in, allow us to listen to Mama Ngina, and I know we all listened to her, but it's good to remind us and the people who are watching us so that then we get into this proper conversation. So we'll listen to Mama Ngina and briefly to the Right Honorable Raila Odinga and come back to you.
Na familia yake, lakini yoyote ya kuzungumza bila maendeleo yoyote haina maana. Nasikia mengine inasemwa ati wengine hawatoi kodi, hawatoi nini. Nashangaa kwa sababu kila mtu anazungumza na uwewamuka anasema hii na mwingine anamuka anasema hii, lakini serikali iko na laini yake ya vile mambo inaendeshwa. Mambo ya kodi, income tax ni lazima mkubwa au mdogo kulipa kulingana na uwezo wake na mapato yake. Hiyo si kazi ya kuzungumza katika kwa magazeti, kwa mikutano, kwa TV. Kwa sababu ukikosa kulipa kodi unapelekwa kotini, kwa sababu hiyo ndio sheria. Ukikosa kulipa ili unatakiwa kulipa, lazima hiyo vitu yako itashukuliwa, itauzwa. Si ndio hiyo sheria ya serikali? Na hivyo hakuna haja na ile laini ya kufanya kazi hiyo iko. Hakuna mambo ya ati kuharibia wale wengine majina na nini. Ndio watu wasikiki ati wanafanya kazi, wanaendesha hivi. Hapana. Mtu asitakiwe alipe ile kitu anatakiwa kulipa. Na kama ni mimi, hata nikiwa na mwaka moja nakosea bila kulipa, mali ishukuliwa ilipe ile tax, kwa sababu ni lazima. Kwa hivyo hakuna haja ya kufanya kazi.
Isitoshe, nataka kuelimisha siku ya leo. Wanawake labda walikuwa bado hawajazaliwa, walikuwa katika primary, mambo mengi wanasema hawaelewi. Hiyo sheria ya ushuru ambayo ilikuwa ina exempt president, tulipopata uhuru kulikuwa na sheria ambayo ili exempt rais kulipa ushuru kama yeye anapatia watoto yake mali yake, succession. Hiyo ilikuwa hapo na ilitengenezwa 63 na ikaidhinishwa 1969. Hiyo sheria ambayo ili exempt mzee Kenyatta's estate. Alafu Nyayo alipochukua baada Kenyatta kufa, yeye akaongeza jina yake huko 1981. Sasa ilikuwa Kenyatta estate na ile ya Nyayo estate. Lakini Wakenya wengine walikuwa wanalipa. Sasa mwaka wa 82, 1982, vijana polepole, 1982 bunge ilipitisha sheria ya kutoa hiyo sheria yote ya kuweka Wakenya wote wawe exempt. Pale tuko sasa, kila Mkenya, sio rais peke yao, lakini Wakenya wote wamekuwa exempt. Kama wewe baba yako anafariki, unawachia wewe mali, wewe ulipe ushuru. Lana vizuri. Kwa hivyo hiyo sheria ambayo Ruto na Gachagua hawajui. Hiyo sheria
All right, and gentlemen, first of all, listen to Mama Ngina. Forget about all this hullabaloo. Yes. Speaks with confidence, like a person who's really been paying tax. And you then ask yourself, if such is the case, you will rarely see her come out to speak. Is it that the first family feels targeted, or really they are being targeted? And if they know very well that they have been paying tax, and with confidence, Mama Ngina says, if I haven't, can you come for what it is that I'm supposed to, to accord out there, so that you don't keep claiming that I haven't paid tax? Just what is happening here? Who is mentioning who is not mentioning who?
Well, I am not a tax expert. I am not.
Yeah.
I don't know what are the actual earnings of the Kenyatta family. That way, it's the only way I would know how much they're supposed to pay. But I am also a firm believer of the saying that where there is smoke,
there is fire.
There is fire. And the white man also said that the guilty ones are the ones who are always afraid. So I don't want to tell so much about how much they are supposed to pay. But I know that looking back at what has happened in the Kenyatta family business when the president was around, President Kenyatta, the fourth president, was around, it is reason enough to make us very suspicious whether indeed they actually pay tax. I have talked, thank God, Linda, even before this issue came, on this set, I have talked about why the family's bank was exempted from paying tax, because the merger between the Kenyatta-owned the Commercial Bank of Africa then, and the Degwa family-owned NCIC, both of those companies were not trading at the stock exchange, and therefore there is a certain amount they were supposed to pay for that particular merger. In fact, I hear people talking about figures that are not correct, because the actual amount they are supposed to pay the taxman was 1.6 billion. That was the money they were supposed to pay. But just by a gazette notice of the then CS for Treasury, what do you call him? The one that was taken to court? Not Yetani.
No, not Yetani, the previous one,
the
Henry.
Previous one, yes, Henry. He is the one who exempted that merger from paying tax to Kenyan. You realize that one of the group franchise that deals with milk has been one of the companies supplying milk for the aid of Southern Sudan. Let me tell you, if a company is involved in giving and delivering milk and products for the purposes of helping in terms of drought and what, it is supposed to entice the taxman from exempting it from paying tax. And I think for me, that conversation is a conversation that must. It is ironical that Mama Ngina is lecturing those who talk about tax in rallies and meetings, and she's talking about tax in church. It is very ironical.
But is it not ironical that it's the president who's largely speaking about this tax conversation as opposed to what it is?
Not
mentioning, but say, I mean, people are of the idea that, can this be let to KRA to handle? Can't you just offer?
Let me tell you the perspective why this is coming in and why the president is talking about it. You have an opposition having a rally in Jacaranda that is geared toward critiquing government and talking about the government being illegitimately in power. It is a rally that is said, because this is an allusion, is alluded to that the sponsor of that rally is His Excellency the President. Then that conversation will become very political, because if someone who is said not to pay tax is being said to sponsor a rally that is critiquing government of the day, why won't the president not speak about it? Indeed. So let me tell you, if the president, the former fourth president and his family want to have this conversation on what you call based on what the taxman should be doing, let them come to the table with clean hands.
Those ones we can't consider as roadside declarations, but what the president says then very important, because remember, Professor mentions that the president then wants to act as though he's the PS, all the PSs, the CSs, and everything. And so in this case, he will want to be the KRA itself.
Let me tell you, as Professor is telling you, he should tell you everybody other than the deputy president that is serving in this government is serving on something called delegated authority from the president. And I'm asking you, Rinda, as a person, if you are sitting on that seat as the president of this republic, and opposition is holding rallies in Jacaranda to actually talk about you being in power illegitimately, they talk about you having punitive decisions on Kenyans, and then the person who is said to sponsor that meeting is a Kenyan who has not been paying tax, as a president who is legitimately in accordance with our constitution has been sworn in. Won't you critique that person?
Someone is asking, and the professor is coming in, someone is asking, this, Linda, is this not the president of Kenya campaigning 6 months into presidency?
I think for me, this is the one thing that we must agree, and I have always said it here. Yes, it is in the right of the president to give a reply to those accusations, but it is at the risk of being seen as he's campaigning. That much I agree. And I think for me, what we must do, and SG will probably agree with me, the opposition and those opposed to this government will do what they have to do to destabilize government.
Yeah.
It is the honors of the government to stay on its course and to stay on its agenda. Because if you don't mark straight on the agenda that you have, the opposition responsibility is to make you veer off the rail.
And of course, as he veers off from what it is that it appears, Professor, this also in response to what people are saying, is it that those ones that would be labeled tax evaders then are getting to a space where they're regrouping against the common mwananchi who wants them to pay taxes? Because when you see the Right Honorable Raila Odinga coming in defense of the First family, or the former First family, when you see Kalonzo Musyoka as well coming in defense of them, maybe the kawaida Raila Odinga would have been saying that yes, people should pay tax, everybody should pay tax, but today we see something that is a little bit contrary. So is it because they know something and perhaps it's quite a chain that really needs to be cut?
First and foremost, Linda, these politicians know each other more than we know them, and even more than we know each other here. Remember, if you look from history, these people have been together in many other ways. Like Ruto, President Ruto was very close to President Uhuru Kenyatta, and they worked together. What they know about each other, we don't know. So there are some things we don't know, and that's why I'm here. Me, I'm not here on the inside, but let's just clarify things which are based on evidence. If the president claims that that the tax evaders are the ones sponsoring rallies for Azimio, let them tell us how much, isn't it? How much is it that it cost in Kibera? How much did it cost in Jacaranda?
And as if you read this message, one person is asking, does he have facts? Does the president have facts?
Yeah, that's the point, because what I'm trying to say here, the president is the spokesperson, not just for the government, for the whole country. The president is a symbol of unity, according to when we sang Loyalty Pledge. Linda, let's be honest here. We want a president who will look calm. Remember, the allegations Raila made against Kibaki were worse than this one. Remember, before the handshake, it was hot. Did you hear Kibaki come in public and start saying this and that? Kibaki focused on delivery. And let me tell you what, the best way to neutralize Azimio is to deliver to Kenyans. According to me, all these things will end. If cost of living actually eases, fuel prices goes down, electricity prices go down, Kenyans get more jobs, the economy starts growing, the dollar becomes much better. People start telling Raila, let the work continue. Remember, kazi iendelee, which was put on Kibaki. Kazi iendelee, which means they are seeing something happening. But here, I hear my friend here talking about, oh, did you see the police was made independent? Which independence are the policemen here? What has that independence brought into the Kenyans' real outcome, which was the pledge, things to them, that liberation? Ukombozi was supposed to come in 100 days. It has not seen any sign of it now. You tell me any sign that we are making a turning point. I haven't seen it. And these are numbers that should be... No, please. Linda, what's happening is that when I want to bring...
And you know, Professor, I also asked you this when there's a survey on the possibilities of an ease, in terms of the high cost of living. We know that surveys then would lead us to proper statistics and facts and figures.
They are not there.
So we cannot overlook that.
A survey was asking people's opinion.
Yes, and you think people...
As an expert in decision making, we say opinion is the lowest level of knowledge.
Yeah, fair enough, but still the same opinions count.
Evidence, which is truth with numbers, because we say, in God we trust. The rest bring what? Data. I go to church. My pastor says, Mary, the mother of Jesus, was virgin before giving birth to Jesus and was virgin after giving birth to Jesus. I believe that. But
so why is it that you don't want to believe the three? When they say that they believe that prayer can work.
But now if I meet another woman who tells me, Fred, I'm still virgin, I tell her, let's see a doctor, isn't it? Because now this is not faith. So the survey is just projecting. I'm telling you that as we see it now, the economy is bad. The dollar is reaching 140. Up from 105 when Ruto took over, isn't it? I've told you percentage of Kenyans, 80 of them are traders. Linda, Mutumba we buy. The second-hand shoes we buy. All these things we buy which have been imported. The dollar is important. So long as the dollar is still going up, anybody telling me the cost of living, even fuel, is going up. We import fuel, we buy them in dollars. We pay our debt. This debt they are talking about, we pay them in dollars and we earn money in Kenya shillings.
That's what government is streamlining
before those things eases, Linda, we can see a sign. But let me just try to answer a few things here which are important. Me, I'm just clarifying. The CRB issue, Linda, I can tell you, CRB, no one was removed from CRB. They were just suspended from stopping, which means you are still in CRB. If it is implemented, you'll still be there. That's a fact. And then secondly, because what I'm trying to say, even Fuliza, I've done survey. Averagely, Kenyans have 5 SIM cards, especially on the lower end of the pyramid. 5 SIM cards, each of them is Fuliza. If you want to send somebody an M-Pesa, you ask them, which number should I use? Never send money before you ask that, because then they'll tell you, you've sent to where Fuliza has eaten. Hustler Fund is creating another SIM card because Kenyans are registering with different SIM cards. We should soon have Kenyans having 10 SIM cards, 10 with Hustler Fund, 10 with Fuliza.
I think
that will,
as you submit, it's very important, Professor, to correct you. The primary identification of Fuliza is not a SIM card.
It is the ID
number. But I'm saying, let me tell you, even if it's the same thing in Safaricom, Linda, we discuss here whether telcos should come and regulate how people register SIM cards. Let me tell you what, some people even have used their children's name. I'm talking from evidence, Linda. There's a lot of things that needs to be done in oversighting. The other thing which he mentioned about that Ruto is a performer. I agree he's a performer. On what? In achieving personal goals, that was given. It was given. No. Moving from.
I think honestly, Linda, we cannot.
No, why don't you guys listen?
Let me tell you. It is one thing to reason. It is one thing to reason, and another for someone to think that he has a monopoly of objectiveness. Because that is what Professor thinks here. When he's talking about Kenyans registering SIM card with the names of their kids, those are data that we cannot
but you also understand that it's quite crafty in this country in terms of and you have traveled maybe to a large extent to accept
I agree, but I'll tell you, there's one thing I'll never do in this show. I'll never quote data that is not authenticated by, not just, it is, he may have done his research, but for any data to be quoted on a national TV, it must be verified by an institution that is licensed.
And Professor acknowledges
that is why I'm always very careful. When I am quoting data, I will quote data from a specific source that can any Kenyan listen to me can actually verify. And I think for me, this is the thing. The professor,
he's a statistician
professor is in a line of trying to make the Honorable William Ruto look bad, look weak,
Linda,
in the name of carving a name
Linda,
for
can you
himself.
protect me, please?
You're protected. And I think he was very categorical. He said that is not his intention.
Let me tell you, let me tell you, in this country,
I'm allowing you,
yes, in this country, just like in the US or the UK, where you have the left politics and the left and the right politics, when you have someone like Professor come on this show who cannot take a stand on either to oppose government or to be part of the opposition, it is someone who is self-centered. He's just thinking about carving a name for himself, because he is here, he's bashing Raila Odinga, he's bashing William Ruto. Unfortunately,
he is on the other side. And why do you look at it as though that this other side does not count?
The leaders we have are a reflection of who we are as a society. And therefore, Professor coming here he's shooting at Raila Odinga, he's shooting at, I mean, it is like the other day, you remember we had a guest who we took to task, to take a side of what you really want. Yeah. Because I am telling you, it is very unfair.
Why is it that the proper sides have to be as in?
No, I'm not talking about, if it was another Kenyans criticizing this government, it would be something else. But Professor here is on record, he is in court trying to balkanize the government of the day.
After this short break. Is that balkanization? This is a legal process that has been allowed in the Constitution, and he's a Kenyan, and he has all rights to proceed to court to counter some of these things, which I think is the most noble way, or noble thing to follow, as opposed to many of us who will come here on set and quarrel and make noise and perhaps not do a thing.
And nobody is disputing that, Linda.
Allow us to take a short break, SG, and then come back.
I would have wanted him to respond to both of us.
He will. After this break, Professor, you'll get the time.
Yeah, like you see, these are the fabrics we use for the sofas. Yeah, there are different types of fabrics. Sabak.
This is the best way to go. Eat color, eat raw, like this is alive.
Well, 2022 is behind us. 2023 is here with us. What are your plans? We here at TV47's Morning Cafe have great plans for you. We're talking about information, we're talking about entertainment, we're talking about the greatness for the year. So make sure that you're always with us every morning.
Kwa muonekano wao hauwezi ukajua waliopitia. Kwa sura zao zinapong'aa hauwezi ukafahamu changamoto zao. Nyuma yao ipo story na historia. Katika kipindi Mfahamu Kiongozi tunakupa nafasi kuweza kuwafahamu kila siku ya Alhamisi kuanzia saa 1:30 kuendelea. Nami Elizabeth Mutu.
Your health matters, and Body Garage is here to guide you on it.
Someone's, after using the medication, the virus number of the HIV in someone's body will start to go.
My medication, wherever I go, I must make sure I'm committed to my medication. Yes, and I should watch what I'm eating. I should not just eat from everywhere or not just eat anything.
We talk mental, physical, and spiritual health. Join us every Thursday at 8 p.m. Old stories.
All right, so welcome back to the broadcast. It's an interesting conversation that has been on even when we had that break, and we're back. So SG, I'll allow you to come in first.
Thank you, Linda. Yes. Thank you, Linda. First and foremost, listening to Professor, you can clearly tell that Professor is not in touch with what we call the reality. And I think he belongs to what you call the elite, the bourgeois. And that's the reason why, for him, he doesn't understand when it comes to the issue of CRB, because obviously, Linda, Professor, you can be sure he has never borrowed any money on these online platforms or on Freezer
So he can
or on
know.
M-Shwari. And that makes the whole difference. For him, the issue of Kenyans being relieved the burden on CRB doesn't count. So, Professor, please, Kenyans, not all Kenyans belong to what you're calling the bourgeois or that elite class.
Yep.
And those are the Kenyans that voted in the Kenya Kwanza government. Linda, please, I would request that Professor withdraws the statement that His Excellency William Ruto is very good when it comes to settling personal goals. Okay. That one will not go on well in this show. Professor, please.
Just allow me now. First of all, Linda, I didn't say that the president is good in performing personal goal. He talked about...
I asked on some... Yes.
He talked about the award the president won, and I said, the writing, whenever you win any award in the university, even they give you a degree honorary, read the writing. Even if the president gives this golden spear, all these things, they lose the writing. Why? The president has performed very well as a person. Given his background, from a farmer, a son of a peasant, to being the head of state is an incredible achievement. That is, give it to him. In fact, against all odds, remember, I usually score him very highly on that. He's smart, isn't it? We are having the most educated president with a PhD, isn't it? But on personal performance, he has a PhD. Personal performance, he's a president. But what we want now is, can we now use the same intelligence for Kenyans to deliver on the economic blueprint of this country? That's the main thing. We have very brilliant people, Linda. In fact, we don't lack intelligence in Kenya.
Can Azimio give him time? Can they get out of the streets and give him time?
Just wait, just wait. But what I'm trying to say is, always everything tilts towards the stomach. Like you see, these gentlemen here are very brilliant. But whatever you are battered from makes you speak. And I like what Peter said. That
again, that is what. No, Professor. Linda,
you get a chance to rebuttal.
There's something that I would not sit here and allow Professor to do.
It's not factual.
As Mushelo as I sit here, let me tell you, I am a private citizen. I don't hold any position in government.
Same case with me.
I have come here to give my own.
Yes, being a one thing, I'm not a government employee.
Not a government employee.
So where is the butter coming from?
When you execute your point, Professor, please execute it without actually putting my views on this show to be said that I am saying this because it's being battered. For that you owe me an apology. I am I'm not being appointed by government from anywhere.
Understood and withdrawn. Let me put my point now. I like what Peter said. He has said, I'm bashing Ruto, I'm bashing Raila. As a fact person, the truth never survives in the two extremes. The truth matter is in the middle between the two. For example, you can't tell me that everything is right with Azimio. Neither can you tell me everything is right about Kenya Kwanza. But what is the truth? The truth here is that the cost of living is high. Is Azimio solving it? I don't see. If they are solving it, tell me what they are doing. Is Kenya Kwanza solving it? I'm not yet convinced. So why that's the truth is, for me, I'm just concerned about, is Kenyans' life getting better? Whether you are collecting more taxes, personalizing taxes. What we want is collect the tax, make us have better education. Collect tax, let us have better cost of living, electricity cost, and the rest. That's the most important thing. Then the other thing which is good
Professor,
here to say,
very brief,
yes, I am not an elite because he doesn't know my background. I have one of the poorest backgrounds of kids in this family. So there's nothing like elites here. So what we are trying to say here, why I have not borrowed money from those fintech is that they came when I was already like having stability, but at the same time, I'm a believer that if the president came with an income program, not a debt program, when someone gives you debt, he's finishing you more than someone giving an income. And I don't believe borrowing money, you can borrow your way to success. You can't borrow your way to prosperity. In fact, when you borrow money, you are getting into more economic challenges. Because Linda, if you borrow money from anyone or the bank, you stop working for yourself, you start working for that person. If I borrow money from you, Linda, when I wake up in the morning, I'm thinking about your debt. I'm looking for how to pay you rather than how to be able to grow any asset or anything about me. So to put these things clear is, let us just look at the true north of a good governance. Citizens' lives should be much better. If we are looking at that, we shall see now less Azimio, we shall see less Kenya Kwanza, and we shall start looking at what was the promises made to Kenyans. And lastly, Linda, I took the manifesto for Kenya Kwanza during the campaign, and I put it on Turning It In, which is a software to check for what's called similarity tests. It was 98% similar to the one of Azimio, because Azimio launched their manifesto first,
yes, first and
then Kenya Kwanza launched theirs second. And I told people on live television that these two manifestos are the same. So don't elect anybody based on manifesto. Elect the person based on the quality of leadership that you can think. I didn't mention who is much better. Then I asked Kenyans, if you have a wallet, can you give to Ruto Gachagua ticket? Or can you give your wallet and granary to Martha Raila ticket? That's the main question we are supposed to answer in the election. We got an answer. Now tell me what is the outcome. That's what I can leave it.
Fair enough. And gentlemen, so yes, there's one person who acknowledges that it's important that Kenya should be led to pay tax. Another one says, lakini kazi ya kutuambia fulani hajalipa tax, President awachie KRA. So is Right Honorable Raila Odinga, successfully managing to get the president in his rail, and this then would cost the president because it will derail him, you think?
Well, I have said...
And you've said that, yes, I think, yeah.
And I will repeat again that the conversation in this country, the conversation about Raila Odinga and his claim about government not having been there illegitimately, it is a conversation we will not stop.
But, and this is Raila in his
That's why I'm coming. That's why I'm coming to. That is a conversation you can't stop because Raila will do what he has to do to remain relevant. The conversation of whether the former first families paid tax or not, that is a conversation again that will not stop, because as far as there are undertones that who so and so is sponsoring this, that conversation will be there. But my challenge to the government of the day, and this is the truth, and this will remain the truth whether those in government or outside government like it or not. The conversation that is out there in the village, SG, is how Kenyans will get employment. It is how they will put money in their pocket. And this means that the conversation of national housing should be the one taking center stage. The conversation of how we are going to invest us into this republic should be the conversation that is taking center stage. The conversation about how we are going to make sure we address the tax and power regime in this country, to invite industrial experts to come and invest here. That is the conversation. And then therefore I agree with you that while Raila is doing what he needs and he must do to remain relevant, while Professor Ogora and other people are doing what they must do to be part of the conversation, what is the government doing to maintain the most important conversations to the minds of Kenyans to be at the center stage? And that is what I say, that we must not allow opposition or otherwise to make this government veer from that level of development. We came as a Kenya Kwanza with an agenda to bring housing, and one of the things about housing, it's not just to provide housing for Kenyans, it is also part of providing the so much needed employment in this republic. Let us make sure that that conversation is what is driving the agenda in this country. We are talking about, I've seen Moses Kuria, the CS industrialization in the Middle East, wooing people to come and invest. Let us come home first and address the power regime. Today, we have made, unfortunately, SG, we have made companies, government entities like Kenya Power to be the villain in this subject of power regime. I can submit to you today, SG, 70% of the tariffs we pay for power do not go to Kenya Power. They go to central government. Therefore, it is in the onus of the central government to actually address the power tariffs, because look at most of the taxes you pay in your token, they are actually government levied taxes, not the Kenya Power. Therefore, I am asking those of us who believe in this government and those of us who we believe into reading this government to actually keep conversations that matters to Kenya at the center stage. We do not want to be deviated away from the rail by the rhetorics by Raila, which are not merited.
How possible is this when SG says, can the opposition and Azimio allow for government to work? They should veer off, but then
that's
again,
what I'm saying.
Yeah, is it not contradicting?
That's what I'm asking. Yeah. I'm saying, and maybe that's why we go separate ways with SG.
Yes.
This is my belief, that the constitution of this republic has provided a platform for Professor here, Raila Odinga and Kohut to actually critique government because it is a God-given and a constitutional freedom that they have to do it.
Yeah.
But it is also the onus of the sitting government to disregard anything opposition says to veer them off the rail. Because let me tell you, you have heard Raila Odinga say that he has a video evidence of Chebukati visiting him in his house, and surprisingly he could not produce that evidence during the Supreme Court hearing, which he is the one who took it to court.
Yeah.
That kind of shenanigan and nonsense is something that we are about to hear from Raila Odinga and other people now and then. But the government, if they don't watch, and I say this with utmost respect to the government of the day, today we are praying right into the traps and tricks of opposition. We have changed the conversation of this republic from the one that is talking about making this economy work. We are now singing the very same song of the opposition, that today if Raila Odinga speaks, we are expecting tomorrow government to respond to him. That is not the way to go. We must keep conversation that, and this has to start with government, as what you have asked.
Yeah.
It is the government that must keep conversations that talk about the pride of Kenya at the center stage. Because I can tell you, the conversation about Raila Odinga, the conversation about Uhuru Kenyatta, I am telling you, and I submit to you with all humbleness, that is not the conversation Kenyans are concerned in the village.
SG, very important things here. First of all, what it is that Mushindu speaks of on the question of creation of employment and all that. And so someone asks, truly speaking, Aki, borrowing is going to work for the people? Is the borrowing aspect of, the Hustler Fund really going to work for the people today? And when we're talking about milking the cow dry, a classic example when we hear the president speak of the taxes, and we have seen taxes on commodities that are in the market today. It's on the extreme, and these Kenyans are the very same Kenyans that Peter Mushindu is speaking about, those ones that are jobless.
You see, Linda, just before I come to that issue of taxes and how to rebuild the economy, on the conversation of Raila Odinga and the Azimio, I have a lot of respect, and any Kenyan who is patriotic enough will appreciate that Raila Odinga has made a huge contribution in nation building and the democratization of this country. Remember his credentials as a freedom fighter, that liberation and all that, multi-party democracy and all that. But it has come to a point whereby now he would only be a very good storyteller. He is very good in history telling. But if we want to talk about the future and what is coming and how we have to push this nation forward, then we have to look at the government of Kenya Kwanza. So I think Peter could not have put it more clearer, that is not the conversation that we should be having this morning as to what Azimio is doing, and because they are trying to distract the government. And Peter, you should not be worried, because I am sure that the president and his team are aware that this is a huge distraction, so that we start discussing pettiness instead of what we promised Kenyans.
They say we are at rally number 3, 10, and this government.
Let them do whatever they want. It is within their freedoms and constitutional rights and entitlements. If they want, the president told them, if you want to demonstrate every day, if you want to criticize us every day, morning to evening, it is within their freedoms and constitutional entitlements. Now, if you look at what the government is doing, and Peter again has mentioned something about it, the massive housing projects that are coming up. So far, 20,000 units have been put up. And the president is saying before the end of the year, we want to have close to 300,000 units. The issue of the environment and bringing our people and young people into employment, we are saying now we want to make sure that young people are involved in a much more dignified way of earning. Sio ile maneno where we had issues of young people collecting garbage and going to the street and all that to clean up. So the government is having a program of making sure that 300,000 young people within Nairobi alone, Linda, are involved in tree planting process, or rather program, which will bring in employment, which obviously has the advantage of making sure we take care of our environment. And you can imagine how that can revolutionize the economy in terms of bringing money into the 190's pocket.
You have the Daily Nation.
Yes.
I'd want you to turn to page 7 of the Daily Nation.
As we turn to page 7 of the Daily Nation, remember also that the president has put up in his reorganization of government what we are calling the Economic Advisory Team. So this is a president, as Professor agrees, who wants to make sure that we do things scientifically. So the Economic Advisory Team is there to make sure that they advise the government so that we can come up with economic policies that will make sure that we broaden the tax base, and that will help us now to collect more taxes and achieve what we've been telling people, pesa mfukoni. So, Professor, let us just be patient enough. Not seeing what is happening. Are you blind? Are you the only one are you in Jerusalem alone, my friend?
All right. Page 7 of the Daily Nation. We'll allow him to answer whether he's in Jerusalem alone. Yes. Controversial, SG. Yes. Controversial company wins 20 billion state housing tender. A local construction firm, page 7. Local construction firm embroiled in controversy over the collapse of building in Nandi County that has killed one person, or that killed and injured 6, has bagged a lucrative 20 billion government housing deal. EPCO Builders Limited was contracted to deliver 5,360 affordable housing units in Machakos County. And of course, the Mavoko project sits on 55 acres. This part of the Kenya Kwanza administration commitment to building 200,000 affordable houses annually for low and middle income earners. Good progress. But then again, the company that we have on board is a company that is in question, perhaps with a legal battle in court. Then you ask yourself, in as much as the Kenya Kwanza is determined to achieve some of these key things that you speak of, what are the measures that are being put on board to ensure that also the characters or the figures that are involved in some of these projects are people who do not have questionable.
You see, Linda.
Linda, you could allow me to say something before it takes up.
Yes.
Issues of credibility or what you would call integrity of the firms that are being awarded these kind of tenders, again, is not an issue that we can discuss on this platform.
But also not
because
issues that we can overlook.
If really there was an issue, and sometimes you have to really also question what some of these newspapers do, some of these editors. If there was really an issue in such a firm, Professor here would have gone to court, because
due diligence has been conducted.
Professor is very good at these things. So really, by the time a company is being awarded such a tender, you can be sure that they qualify.
Okay.
So what is this?
Professor.
But probably after here, you've given him another matter to
Linda,
the professor is here to tell us.
This morning, I was planning to tell you the following. That Hustler Fund is just one of the issues where we are having an unconstitutional process of setting up a fund. The issues are there. I don't want to mention because in the public domain is also in court. Now, the issue of housing, that's the same thing. That's Kenya Kwanza for you. I will also tell you another one that maybe is not in Daily Nation. The National Trading Corporation is the one distributing fertilizer in Kenya, but not the National Cereals Board, which means that the fertilizer distribution is taking place in another ministry, but not Ministry of Agriculture. It's under Moses Kuria, not under Linturi. This is Kenya Kwanza for you. When I told you that the cabinet that was put in place is a political cabinet, one thing good with that is that they understand the manifesto of the president. That's the beauty of it, isn't it? But the other thing is, are they capable of delivering if they are more political than not? So my own thing has always been mix the two. You can put some ministries which are about delivery. For example, Minister of Agriculture, you should just put someone who knows agriculture, execute it, and get your results.
Are you trying to say the current CS for agriculture doesn't understand agriculture?
What I'm trying to say here, I'm saying, for example, I've not even mentioned his name. I've just said there are some ministries, for example, I've not mentioned anybody's name. There are some ministries that if you are the president, put the competent person, bet it be a technocrat. Your decision is up to you to know which one is which one, isn't it?
Which one is good.
But some ministries that you can actually reward a political person. So what is the balance in Kenya Kwanza? Is it towards more heavy on political rewards or more into economic? Because remember, also if you put technocrats who don't understand you, you may end up with the government whereby you are trying to sell your agenda and they don't buy it. So there must be a balance between, because the president has a difficult thing. I should tell people, the president is not like me. He wakes up things about how to fix the economy, how to do the issue of KRA, how to fix the issue of economy, how to manage Raila Odinga, how to manage Wajakoya, how to, can you imagine
now,
if, and also you have a family, so it's a difficult task. Well, no, please just allow me. It's a difficult task.
Raila Odinga is the list of worries for the Kenya Kwanza administration.
No, just
everybody knows how he operates.
Nevertheless, I can give you facts whereby he goes to church and mentions Raila Odinga 90 times and Jesus once. So those are facts also. So I'm just using numbers, isn't it? So Linda, I'm saying there should be a balance in this. So apart from those things, those companies being appointed, I've told you a trend. Reversing Uhuru Kenyatta's projects, replacing everything Uhuru Kenyatta was doing with the staff to his own, isn't it? Thirdly, tenders. The companies that were winning tenders during Jubilee government, they are winning less tenders in Kenya Kwanza government. I'm not saying it's bad, those are just numbers. So they can judge whether that is good or not. But that can also say those are changes that actually the president has to make. Peter has said it is right to make any decision he does. I've also heard Mudavadi, his party leader, saying, his party leader, the founder of NSC, saying that this government belongs only to one person, William Ruto. He said it in Mount Kenya. So it means that he has the right to do anything he wants. But for me, I don't have a problem with that. So long as the true north of Kenya, which is cost of living, electricity, fuel is being done, like Peter says, this government must deliver. Why? The president took over when COVID had hit, isn't it? Russia-Ukraine war was there. The economy was starting to struggle. And we cannot allow failure. But at the same time, follow procedure, because the president is sometimes good intention. But now, when I thought the intention of collecting taxes was pure, then what I'm hearing is that the president is having this fight with First Family and Raila Odinga because of funding a rally, which means had the president not known or understood or thought that the rally is being funded by somebody else, he could have just let the tax issue
Again, working on
Peter Mushendo, we're almost closing this. Are you not tempted to ask SG where ANC is at?
At where?
Are you not tempted to ask SG where ANC is at?
No, we interact.
No. NC, we interact with him.
So you know where it starts,
that we have over a cup of coffee and not on this.
I'm going to ask you that anyway, as the Secretary General.
First and foremost, we're listening to Professor. I am not surprised. Because Professor says, the president should have appointed this kind of people in cabinet, this kind of people in whatever positions. This government, or rather these companies are not winning these tenders. I'm not surprised. Why? Because the bourgeois and the so-called elites were used into thinking that certain positions in government belong to certain classes of people. And certain government tenders belong to certain companies who are owned by certain people. So please, let us wake up to the new reality that Kenyans voted in a hustler government. So now hustlers can also be cabinet ministers. Hustlers can also be permanent secretaries. Hustlers companies can also win government tenders. And I think that is the problem we are having with our friends. Because it is a revolution. It is getting the country back to its owners.
Someone says, can you look them in the eye again and confidently tell them that the president is not in panic because of the moves of the Right Honorable Raila?
Absolutely, he's not. He's least bothered.
Would it be important that he is bothered?
Well. Again,
ignore at your own peril.
You see, Linda, the issue of people congregating the issue of people holding political rallies is actually a constitutional entitlement.
Okay.
So they are just exercising their constitutional rights and freedoms.
Okay.
There is nothing wrong with that.
Fair enough.
And this president has sworn that he is going to protect the constitution. So let them continue it within their rights.
I will allow you to have that coffee. That cup of coffee.
The only issue here is Kenyans are not concerned with that for now. As Peter has said repeatedly here, and I won't support him, Kenyans are concerned about the cost of fuel, the cost of electricity, money in the pocket, cost of healthcare, education for their children, and that is what President Ruto and the government
Linda, let me just one word. The president asked, when you met him in State House, he asked opposition to come strong, isn't it?
Yes.
He's getting it. So he should not be worried. Then lastly, I can tell you, Raila Odinga will set Ruto's agenda for 5 years if he is not careful. Maybe he has already done it. He did it for Moi. He did it for Kibaki. He did it for Uhuru. Ruto will still fall the same prey. Ignore Raila at your own peril. I can tell you, I dispute Raila. I'm saying he's done. I said he's done in 2013. He emerged out of nowhere in 2017. He was strong. Then I said 2017 for sure, dead and buried. He rose again in 2022. And when I'm telling you, Raila is like a terminator. A terminator, you finish a terminator, then he wakes up. Raila will wake up
rejuvenated.
And give okay.
Peter, it has to be 30 seconds. It has to be 30 seconds. It has to be 30 seconds, Peter.
I'll say this quickly to Professor. I think Professor is the wrong person to critique government. His first action when this government came in was to start an initiative to change the constitution. Changing of constitution, as I have made my remarks on the letter written by the president to parliament, changing of the constitution is not a thing that Kenyans are interested in right now.
Okay.
And I will challenge the government in my 30 seconds that let us keep the conversations that concern Kenyans alive. Let us, as we have said, if we can achieve 300,000 housing unit in this republic, SG, it also means that we can achieve 700,000 creation of jobs in this year alone. Let us keep that conversation alive. Let us talk about how we are going to streamline the junior secondary that is in so much dire need of being streamlined. Let us talk about health. Let us talk about issues that concern that Kenyan in the Gio village where I come from in there.
Asante sana. SG, allow me to say kwaheri.
Well, yeah, thank you very much, Linda. It's been quite an interesting conversation. And as we've put it here with my brother Peter, His Excellency President Ruto is very busy. He's very busy focusing on how to deliver on what we are calling the plan. That is the Kenya Kwanza Manifesto. He's very busy making sure that he'll deliver on lowering the cost of living. He's very busy making sure that Kenyans feel that his government can be seen on their table every day when it comes to the kind of food they eat, the kind of healthcare they access,